Welcome everybody. In this video, I have an opportunity to chat with a man named Jeff. Jeff is a success story of the Sinclair Method for overcoming alcohol addiction and also one of the co-founders of MARA International, Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, which is a platform that provides tools, resources, information, and even meetings for people who are on medication treatment for various types of addiction. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, just want to say thank you so much, Jeff, for taking time to speak with me today. And I want to kick it off with just asking you to tell us a little bit about your history with recovery from alcohol addiction and what is it that led you to the Sinclair Method?
Talk about my history alone would be a 5-hour interview, but but my history, I guess, if you just point out the alcohol part of it, was that I started using another substance first, smoking pot, and it was trying to get me to be different than I was. I didn't like the feelings of school and whatnot, but then before you know it, someone had alcohol. I guess I was about 13, and I was like, wow, this really allows me to be me. Like some people say to be me again, but I was like never really me. Like I always felt, out of place. And so for the alcohol to all of a sudden, this is how I've always wanted to feel. It didn't take long before I was pretty much an everyday drinker. But also at the time, I did start finding pills that made me feel like alcohol. And so I did both. I mixed as many as I could. I was a kid. I would put alcohol in wine sacks. I grew up in New York, so it's a little colder. You could put the wine sack in your winter coat and bring it into school, and 14-year-old kid doing that. But so it was alcohol with everything else. So I did a lot of different drugs, but alcohol was always with them. And I say 14 because I know it's 14 because I left school at 14. So they asked me not to come back.
What?
So,
was it drug related or alcohol related?
yeah, if I explained it, I sometimes say I got kicked out of school for being in school. But I had been suspended for 5 days because someone told me like I was, said that I had been smoking in the bathroom, smoking. I never smoked cigarettes, by the way. And anyway, so we were suspended for 5 days. Best thing that could happen to a young kid like that. Yeah, I don't have to go to school for 5 days. But if you ever heard of home ec class where they make cakes and whatnot, I got a phone call the next day from a friend of mine. Oh, you don't know what you're missing. We just put a half ounce of pot in the cake and it's in the oven. And I was like, oh gosh, I have to get to school, And anyway, I snuck into the class and did what I did. But as I was leaving, I saw the kid that told on us, and I was a real punk. And the kid was a really good kid. Like he was just, about his studies and whatnot. If I saw him today, he probably I don't know where he is, but he probably owns some huge company. He's probably wealthy, and here I sit, But anyway, I pushed him, and it wasn't good. And I got told not to come back to school, and I got put on probation. And that, criminal trespassing was one of the things. So I wasn't supposed to be in school that day. But anyway, moving forward, I escalated into all the things. Alcohol was always with them. There were times I wanted to leave the house to go get like drugs, but I couldn't even leave the house without having a few drinks so that I felt comfortable enough to leave the house so I can get the other stuff. Well, to skip over a whole bunch of things, I got arrested 9 times.
What?
The first 8 could pretty much get seen as like drunk and disorderly, or that wasn't the charge. But I mean, put it this way, more like drunk, and it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
Just stupid things. I got arrested for stealing a rubber mallet. And I got arrested for, I don't know, I call it the Brady Bunch. There's another one I call the pawn shop, but I know I'm in Texas, and so the word porn sounds just like the word porn out here. Like where you sell your jewelry sounds just like the word where they have, dirty shows. So I know it sounds the same. I can't say it different yet. I've been here 17 years, but there's still some words I can't get right. So just clarifying that it was more jewelry than the other thing. But really just a bunch of stupid things. And then the last thing was a really serious thing. I went to prison for a long time, but I did do alcohol, and I did do actually that night some really heavy stuff like angel dust and cocaine. But I went to prison for a long time. And when I came out, I was sober and I was involved in AA for a few more years. And then, well, I started drinking, figuring, boy, it's, I was kind of young. When I went to prison when I was 21. So I was like, I'm trying to young. And I had been with this woman, and she was like, how do you even know if you're an alcoholic? You haven't even drank, since you were young. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I went and got some, and I was so happy that I was okay for a while, and probably lasted like a year, and then while I had just, very little been in me, a few drinks, white powder came around, and that's one of the things I had a problem with when I was a teenager, and I was like, been a long time. So anyway, I did that, and it was not good. I ended up having to go to rehab to stop. I couldn't stop. And when I got out, I stayed sober for the next 7 years with AA. Life was pretty good, but I have to say that I knew I was going to drink because there's a whole bunch of things involved, but when they say meeting makers make it, I don't believe that. I went to a lot of meetings, and I started seeing a lot of things I didn't like, and I felt that I couldn't really question it. So just dating back a second, like growing up as a young kid, we grew up Jewish family, and weren't religious, but my mother always remembered our culture. And so if we saw like what we call today minorities sometimes, but she was like, you be nice to them. They're just like us, and they're just like us, and they're going through something that we went through. And, so like it was instilled in me to not be discriminatory and to be everybody's equal. And when I first found out things like women seem to not get paid as much as men, I was like, I don't get it. That's not right. Same-sex marriage was illegal. Like, I don't get it. You said everybody was created equal. Like, I just realized these things at a young age. And so when I was in AA and I heard some of the really shameful things happening, it bothered me. And for a while, it was just like, I'm going to go with the flow because I'm dying and I need freaking help. But then I started, becoming more of somebody who was sober a while. And I still didn't get to answer questions. And when I did, they would point me to something in the book that seems to have the answer to everything if you bend that far. But I've heard I guess one of the last straws was when they told somebody, I don't really think this meeting is I don't really think the 12 steps are good for me. I'm going to try something else. And I was there. This was like the so-called home group where you go to regularly. And it was told to this person, it was a woman, you go on and let me know how that works out for you. And I really interpreted that. I wasn't that person or that person, but I interpreted it as, wow, you're just telling them, go ahead, nothing else works, and you're going to go die unless you come back here begging or something. I'm not saying that's what they meant, but that's the way I interpreted it. And I thought to myself afterward, like, and they even let me go back once and speak about a year ago, and I did. And I said, if you let me say what I want to say, I will speak. But I brought up that incident, and what if they said, like, I'm sorry about that. Hey, why don't I take you somewhere else? Do you like Smart Recovery or Refuge Recovery or any of those? Hey, let's look it up. I'll drive you to the meeting. Now, if the person is secure in their so-called 12-step program, then go ahead and drive them. Take them to the meeting. If it works for them, awesome. You've done your job. You've helped them. Isn't it about helping people? And if it doesn't work for them, they're going to remember you're the one that went out of your comfort zone to go help them. So if you can help them one way or the other, it doesn't have to be help them your way. It just means help them. And so that all clicked in my brain right away. And I thought, this isn't about that. This is about do it my way, do it my way, do it my way. And I had a lot of questions adding up in me. And when I brought them up, I was just told, come on, your brain needs a good brainwashing. Like it was all funny. No, my brain doesn't need a good brainwashing. I'm growing up, I'm learning, I'm maturing. I need to learn these things. So not just go with the flow. And anyway, I came to a point where I knew I wanted to go back and drink. And I was with a wife, and she's great. I'm still married to her. And she knows nothing about AA. She really, now she's learned about some, but she never had a drinking problem. You know, every few weeks she might have half a drink, wine or a margarita or something, but she doesn't really drink. But my friends told her, oh, be careful if he ever has a drink. And they like forewarned her, you know, how bad it would be. And I said to her one day, you could listen to them or you could listen to me. I am telling you, I can have a drink once a week or so and it'll be okay. And in the back of my head, I wasn't 100% because I have had cravings before. And I really was going to push everything I can to do that. Well, right about that time is when I saw Claudia's TED Talks, which I hear about a million other people saw. And I thought, you know, if I'm going to have a drink, I should try this crap, you know, like it's probably just, you know, nothing. It's stupid. It's just another method people talk about. But you know what? If I'm going to have a drink, I might as well try it. And so I did. And I guess I was an early responder because I barely felt like finishing my first drink. And my plan was to drink once a week. And so a week later, my wife said, well, it's Friday night. I think I'm going to have a drink. And I said, hey, me too. Oh, you know what? Let me take my pill and wait an hour and see what happens. See if this is the fluke or I could do it again, you know? And I did it again. Like at the end, it really didn't taste right. And then anyway, I did that for about a year, about once a week for about a year. Maybe it started getting a little less than once a week, but I did not crave it at all. And between those two times, like between the Friday and the following Friday, I didn't crave it all either. I didn't really think about it. So anyway, I went on and I thought, oh, I must have reached extinction, you know, because you don't crave about it. And so it went on for a while. And then I realized, you know, I don't even want to drink once a week. You know, every few months or something, we go out and maybe, you know what, I'll just have something. And I started realizing something kind of that might not make sense to people. I felt like an adult. Like I'm 55 now, so I was about 50. And I felt like an adult. Like I could go out and order a drink and not be afraid to, you know, make fun of myself or you know, make, you know, have my family be embarrassed. I can have a drink and do that. And it was like, wow, I never could do that before. And after a short period of time, my wife believed in it because she saw it. She was the closest one. I still have some friends today that are in AA that I don't see that much that I haven't told about the Sinclair Method. Nothing happens that I would, you know, call them to bail me out of jail or anything like that. So I found no reason to. There are a couple that I have told about, and they said that's great, you know, and they really, you know, on my side. But I kind of wish I could just tell everybody, so I really don't care. But at the same time, to tell everybody seems like interfering with another person's progress. And that's one of my big things, not to interfere with another person's progress and not to interfere with my own progress. And so if somebody is sober in AA or wherever they're doing, that's working for them. I don't want to say, hey, by the way, you can drop that and take this pill. It works. Because I don't know, you know, if they're happy, I don't want to interfere with their life. And I don't want to say that I do it. And I go to what we talked about earlier as a Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous meetings. And originally that was supposed to be helpful for a place for people on TSM to meet because they're on medication and they're in recovery and it'd be great. And it's an all-inclusive meeting. However, you can almost say it got taken over by people that are mostly on methadone or Suboxone or work in treatment centers and have been told that people on methadone or Suboxone get discriminated against. So, meaning at other meetings, like, you know, I'll just say it, NA, AA, whatever. So they're trying to find something more comfortable for them. And then when they hear of MARA, Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, they think, maybe you should try that. I think it would be bigger if people were, hate to use the word honest, but but I worked in a MAT facility. By the way, I'm a licensed counselor, but I worked in a MAT facility, meaning medication assisted treatment. And there was 212 people, I think, and they would all say, yeah, I don't go to NA because it's real discriminatory and they don't have anything for me. Well, once I started one in the building, the highest number we got was 6. We generally got 4. we bought 3 pizzas every week because about a quarter of them are homeless, and that's where they're at right now, and we figured we'd help. And it's still, they just wanted their medication and leave. I shouldn't say they, because now I'm characterizing everybody, but really, I mean, most of the people that take medication got used to saying that as a reason. Oh, I don't go there because they discriminate against me. But they really didn't want a meeting anyway. It seems like they didn't want one anyway, unless it was just too inconvenient to go back to the clinic. But in any case, so I think if really the people who can benefit from it utilized it, I think that it would be much bigger, and it'll be all over the place. There's a few reasons why it's not bigger. One of the reasons is I'm doing no outreach at all to try to spread it, and it's because I'm answering a lot of your questions with that one question. I mean, I'm 3/4 of the way through a Mara book on how to do these steps. It is a 12-step group, but it's a non-traditional 12-step group, which I can tell you a few different things. But first, let me just say that's why I'm not doing outreach, because if I pushed out to all these places, they'd want the program, I think, a lot of them, but they'd want something to go with. Well, what do we do with it? We can't just have 12 steps. We need a book. And there are a few books people are using to get like subjects to talk about, but it's not the Mara book to help the action part of the steps. So I'm not reaching out until that's available. So I could say, hey, we've got this program that you might want to incorporate. And it comes with these books and these tokens. We do have tokens, by the way. And they say the third tradition, which is, I wonder if I'm even allowed to screen share. Chips, is that there? Can you see that?
Yeah, the blue chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the blue chip. It just says a desire to live a safe lifestyle today. And stop sharing. All right, and then I have the steps and the traditions pulled up, but it really doesn't matter for people to read it unless you want to screenshot it or something.
Yeah, I can link it below the video. And I want to back up a little bit because, I mean, obviously
because I talk fast.
You are the person who started Mara, Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous. Is that what it stands for?
Yeah, but I could correct that about me being the person that started it.
Okay, well, yeah, tell us a little bit about how it got started, because I know you got on the Sinclair Method. You were sober in AA. You knew you were going to drink anyway and transition out of AA, and you found the Sinclair Method, and you started it as a way to support people on the Sinclair Method. But like you said, it kind of took on a life of its own in supporting other people on narcotics or whatever other medications they might be addicted to. So
I'm glad you went back to that, because what I didn't finish was my TSM journey also, which is basically the only end part of that is that I went from thinking I was in extinction because I could do it every few months to, man, I really don't feel like doing it. And so like I've averaged for the last 3 years, 1 drink a year, which is kind of amazing for me. Part of the reason I think that I don't have to get it is because I know I can have it. Like, it's not like, oh, I'll never have to do it again in my life. I can't deal with that. But just knowing that if I wanted to drink, I can. And so then usually around New Year's Eve time, I have a drink. But anyway, that's that. So the Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous is apparently it's something that a few people in Florida got together and did something, and somebody either in Virginia or Pennsylvania or something got together and did a meeting. Before I was getting into this, about December 2017 was when I thought about this. And the word, like, if you're in medication assisted treatment and you're not feeling comfortable at the other meetings, if me and you got together and said, hey, let's just have our own meeting, medication assisted treatment and recovery anonymous. So it's like a really easy name to think of, Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous. So if somebody were to say to me, oh, well, I invented it first, or I found it first, or I whatever did it first, I don't really care what they say. So I always call myself a co-founder. And part of that is because when I did it, I researched it, and I was working in a prison at the time, oddly enough, and I was able to talk to groups of 100 at a time. And before that, I worked in, residential programs and MAT programs. But I have found out what didn't work, and God is one of the things. Not that God doesn't work. Personally, I highly believe in God, but I believe in God so much that I do not have to put him in the steps or in any of the literature. And so it's not a requirement to believe in God. So that's one of the different things. So when I try to explain, it's not secular. So, well, what do you mean it's not secular? You don't have, come to the meeting, talk about God. God put this in my life. God was wonderful to me. God, whatever. My mom was wonderful to me. My Uncle George was wonderful to me. All valid, no discrimination. So it's built on non-discrimination. Talk about what you want, but the steps were supposed to be designed, including the traditions, to be all inclusive and to not push people away. And so one of them was to remove the word God and instead says things like wise counsel in the short version. When you get into the long version, it says things like people who were our role models, even if they're passed on. My uncle was my role model and he's passed on, but I think, well, how would he act? I bet you he wouldn't react the way I am. And some of the steps, step 8, where it says in the traditional things, made a list of people we have harmed. In Mara, it says, made a list of people we have harmed, made a list of people who have harmed us, which people don't really get to hear that. They're like, well, what happened to you? Well, I got raped. Well, what was your part? What do you mean, what was my part? I was a victim. But anyway, how people hurt you. And then a third one is, how did you react to the way people hurt you? And maybe you'll start finding patterns. My core value is I always felt stupid, or my core value is this. And when someone made fun of me to the point that made me feel that way, how did I react? Maybe I reacted in a way that hurt somebody else. And now, so maybe I have to look at, wait, when someone does this to me, I need to cut it right there so that I don't go on to hurt the next person. And so it's not just who have we harmed, but how do we stop harming the person? Where did it come from? Maybe there's probably a zillion reasons, but maybe one of them was from how we got hurt and we passed the buck, we passed it on. So we look for familiar patterns in that. But anyway, that's why our step 8 or our step 8 is different than the other steps. Originally, there was no place to meet that I knew of. I knew of 1 or 2 attempts of people to try to get TSM people to meet together. I know I talked with Claudia. I almost want to say our fearless leader, but she's really been a big advocate that has helped a lot of people and reached a lot of people. And I know there had to be something with it. There was another program that existed at the time, but her or maybe a couple of others were the only people that went with the TSM background. And it's hard to go. Like, I went to a smart recovery meeting once and people told me that they were on this medication. And I was like, what is it? Hoping that it was the same thing. And they said it was the disulfiram or whatever it is that makes you throw up when you use it. I wanted to say, don't use that. You should try this. But at the same time, I didn't want to interfere with their progress. I didn't want to change the topic of the meeting. So I just kind of left it like that. And I thought, wow, we really need a meeting to get together. So when I thought about Medication-Assisted Recovery Anonymous, I thought, well, that would be a great thing that people like us that do the medication, where I don't even know if I could say I'm on medication anymore. Because if I drink once a year and I take a pill, does that mean, I'm in medication-assisted recovery? I don't know. I don't know what it turns. It's kind of like the argument I have with people that say, my name is Jeff and I'm in long-term recovery. Well, what makes long-term recovery? I mean, for some people, 6 months is long term. For other people, if you're in 10 years, that's not long term. So what would be the, criteria? So what it came down to with Mara is that it was hopefully for people with TSM, and that's why it says in the opening, the suggested opening, it said, medical advice can lead to death. Like it doesn't just say can lead to these things. It just says can lead to death. Like, this is serious. Like, I could just imagine people that are on methadone or other opiates, and all of a sudden they take a naltrexone and go into instant, detox or withdrawals, and it would be horrible. So I almost think it's good that they didn't join together, but I would hope that they'd be responsible if they joined. Zoom might be a great place to do it. So anyway, continue with the question, because I'll keep going in that direction.
Yeah, no, thank you. So Mara's ideal, like for people who might have benefited from like a structured step program like AA, but they're, not going the abstinence only approach. They're incorporating medication into their recovery. And is that true for people who might be on opioids and alcohol, or where does it stand today with people using Mara for the Sinclair method?
I can answer that, and please don't let me forget, but I just want to say that when we say things like you just said, like, so it's a 12-step program that can work. A lot of people just think of the way that they changed AA to NA by moving one word. There's actually two words that are different in the 12 steps. It's not like that at all. Like if you can read the 12 steps of Mara, it's very non-traditional. There are two things that are the same, 9 and 10, and that's even different. It talks about sought through self-reflection and meditation. There's nothing about prayer. The 12th step in the traditional meetings says like having had a spiritual awakening. Mara says having gotten in touch with your true voice within, like finally listening to ourselves. Finally, you know, we had ourselves. Don't get into that relationship, you know, don't make a U-turn, you know, you have to get up tomorrow. Don't do that. Well, we never listened, or some of us never listened. And now we start to learn to listen, how much of a benefit it would be. So by the time we go from step 1 to step 12, we really get to know ourselves. It's not like we're relying on something else. We're empowered ourselves. And so many of the steps are way different than the traditional steps. They're written different. And if you went through the long versions of how to do them, they're way different. In fact, a lot of people that do that do traditional steps totally don't agree with this approach. So I just don't want people to think that it's like, oh, we moved one word from, you know, alcohol to medication assistance. You know, we didn't. Yeah. We changed a whole lot. And you started to ask me about why it would be good for TSM. Tell me again that question.
Yeah, I mean, just understanding it's a lot of people who've had opiate use disorder or other issues have joined this Mara, but is it for people on the Sinclair Method? Are there meetings for people on TSM, or what would it be like if a TSM person joined one of these meetings?
Well, it would be easy to say like, oh, we should have a TSM-friendly Mara group, but supposedly, and hopefully, all groups are TSM friendly. All groups are people who speed too much down the street friendly. All groups are for people who've never done anything friendly. There's no requirement. The requirement, as I said, and as you saw in the token, is the desire to live a safe lifestyle. And so if people fit that category, well, I've done the Sinclair Method, or I do it because I want to be safer. I want to remember where that scratch on my car came from, because accidents happen. I don't want to get home and the next day say, damn, where did that scratch on my car come from? So we do have people in the groups. We have somebody they always sign in as mother of somebody, because I imagine something happened to their child. We have people that sign in. When I say sign in, I mean they're on the Zoom meetings. You can see the different thing. There are people who've never done medication. There are, it's really for anybody. It's supposed to be all-inclusive, and it says non-judgment is our code. So I just know that if somebody went into any of the meetings I've been in anyway on the Zoom, I can't go all over the country, but on the Zoom meetings I can, and said, yeah, I use this method for giving up alcohol, people probably wouldn't even ask the method or the medication or anything. They would just say, oh, I'm glad you're here. And, you know, and we're going to have a step meeting starting September 13th where you can actually see the Mara steps if you want to try that. They're nothing like regular steps. And they would just welcome, and any input you have would be welcome. Now, ideally, and we've talked about this at a bunch of groups, somebody that came in and said they used that morning, like heroin, for instance, might have something to say that can help us. Just as somebody who comes in and says, well, I've been 20 years without any drugs or alcohol. They don't care. I'm sorry, but we don't care about time. It says at the beginning, many of us have seen that quantity does not equal quality. And so if somebody came in and said this, I'd be like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I don't want to not consider somebody because they're brand new and then look up to somebody who's, you know, oh my gosh, she's got 20 or 30 years, you know, so what? It really doesn't matter. And I relate a lot of things, I guess, in my life to how this was put together. And one of them was, I probably can't tell now, but I used to be a real gym addict, and I used to go to the gym a lot. And I remember seeing a kid who was about 17 years old, and I thought, you know, I was this guy that knew all this stuff. I'd been a personal trainer for a while, and I saw this guy grab a barbell, and there was nothing on this side, yet there was like 45 or 55 on this side. And he went to take it off the rack, and I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna have an accident. And I ran over and I stopped him, and and he said, oh, no, this is my power coach, my powerlifting coach told me to do this to kind of strengthen up one side. I just balanced the other side. And I said, oh, wow. Hey, you mind if I try center that? And I learned something from a 17-year-old kid who in the past I might have just, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm walking away. I don't even want to see this. But instead I listened and I found out new things that I can use. And so now listening to somebody who's got one day, without it, or a half a day for that matter, I might learn. And I'm smart enough to filter through and see if this stuff that I don't want to listen to, but I also should consider all the things that are listening, that I hear. I have found that all these things that I swear are right, a lot of them aren't, but I have to consider that there's a possibility that I am wrong, no matter how
so humbling, right?
Yeah, no matter how determined I am that I am right, there's a possibility I am wrong, and I always need to remember that.
Yeah, and I think I shared this with you too, but with the Sinclair Method meetings, we started a group of us over the last year. Sometimes people are like, oh, I can't host, I'm not at extinction yet, or I've only been on the method for a month. But I totally agree with what you're saying, because just the value of the group experience and the wisdom of the group, and someone who has had a month under their belt might have a fresh perspective as opposed to someone like me who it's been years. And so I love the principles and the intention behind what you're doing. It's just so, as you said, inclusive and innovative, and it's really, I think, forward looking, as opposed to kind of what the AA is great, and I don't want to knock AA. I know it works for people that got my dad sober, but I'm just so excited to see these new options that are coming available for people.
Just one thing you said, when something about you have done or whatever, makes me remember another subject we were talking about, which I probably never finished because that's what I do. A person here, a person there said that they did Mara. All I know is that now, currently, or for the last 2.5 years, all the literature that's been, I guess, evolved or whatever, everything has been written by me, and there are some words written by AA. Maybe you don't need their permission. People keep telling me, oh, it's a public domain, you don't need their permission. However, I did write to them, and they gave me a little paragraph to write underneath the steps. So basically, I got their blessing or their permission. And then we went the other route, which is to get things copyrighted and trademarked, and we got it legal, which brings me to the point where people say, is it a nonprofit? No, it's a profit. But if you know anything about business, a profit may be broke. We're not only broke, we're about 4,000 backwards. And we look at it like, my wife and I would do charity work for other things. So we look at it like every time we hear somebody saying, oh, I'm so glad this is here, we think, all right, that's charity work. That's charity work. But I would like to make it a nonprofit. But if I did that right now, there would be a board I'd have to answer to, and they'd vote on things. And I really think that I'm the good person or the right person to make some of these decisions right now until it's in place. And then I'd like to, let it just fly, let it, whatever happens, happens. But I'd like to get it in place the way I want it. I hate this, that's pretty controlling maybe, but I'd like to do that. And so when some people say it's like, Mara International LLC, they think, oh, they're making money. We've told every single group that I know of, do not send any money. Whereas other 12-step groups say, send us donations, a certain percentage. We've never told, we tell everybody, if you make any money at all, put it back in the group, buy cookies, buy coffee, try and fill the room up. We've never accepted any money from anybody, nor have we ever asked for any money. So we're a little bit in the hole there, but that's okay for right now. So.
And you said you're working on a book. When will that be done, do you anticipate? Not to put a deadline on you.
That's a great question. People have been asking me that for a while. Here's one of the cheap problems, I'll tell you. Meaning that, yeah, I probably have enough to put a book together. It's all over the place because I'm not very organized. I've got files here and files there. But I am putting them together and maybe adding some other stuff and changing some other stuff. I can give you an idea why I changed. But I'm supposed to graduate in 2 months with an MBA in healthcare management. And I think that the MBA in healthcare management on the title would be a little better than just like, a counselor or, so I just think that, why don't I just wait 2 months, push it out a little, to have that on there. And I don't know how to do it if I can just have the name of the company on there, or maybe my initials. I've been using my initials lately, JK, because somewhere in the text and social media community, my initials have become a joke, JK. So anyway, I don't know, but I'd prefer not to use my name, like if I'm that, so I have
Fair
a
enough.
weird thing about anonymity. But when is the book going to come out? I mean, there are a few more things that I am definitely waiting on, but there's only one person that I sit down with every Tuesday and I take him through the steps. And the reason is I've written them all out, but as I walk him through the steps, I'm finding, hey, he'd really benefit more if we changed this. And he knows he's my guinea pig, he knows. So as I'm actually doing it with him, we're changing a few words here and there. And so that it'll be ready for the main population. And we're almost done with that. But I have said that I can say that he's been very helpful. And I call him Mara number 1, but but he's been very helpful in me changing a few words here and there.
That's awesome.
So hopefully in a few months.
Awesome. So I guess, just to kind of wrap up here, where can people find more information about Mara and the steps and all the work that you and others have been doing to grow this?
The website is mara-international.org or mara-international.org. And you'll see all the literature on there. If you see something else that says like a Mara prayer or something like that, that's not us. That's something that people make up. We have a logo that is trademarked, and some people just use it. And I can do everything legal that I can do here. But if somebody in North Carolina or Georgia or Alabama does something with our logo, it's not like I can send lawyers here and lawyers there and like I just can't do anything about it. If they want to go against it, they go against it. If I have a phone number, I can try and talk to them. But so mara-international.org. There is also a Facebook page, Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, that they can find, follow, and get some support from other people if they have questions.
Awesome. Well, just thank you so much, Jeff. I really enjoyed talking with you and appreciate you sharing your story and more about the Mara efforts.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your TSM journey online. I've seen some of it, and I really enjoyed it. Give a lot of people inspiration, and Claudia's not here, but I have to thank her as well, because I probably wouldn't have come this far, or my life wouldn't be the way it is today. I mentioned I was in prison and all these things. I never thought my life would be the way it is today. We have a beautiful house. I have a great hobby that I could do in my backyard, and I just have a beautiful truck today, and all these things that I wouldn't have if I was drinking too much. Not that it's all about that. To me, it's about happiness, but I am very happy with what I have today. So
yeah.